Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of flyover country adjacent to the land of Oz, the Kansas City on the other side of the mighty Mo, welcome to Hittin' the Bricks with Kathleen, the genealogy show that features your questions and her answers. I am John, your humble hubby host, and on this episode, Kathleen will be talking to Anna Wilkins from the Wheat State, the Jayhawk State, home of the Kansas City that Little Willie Littlefield was not singing about, the great state of Kansas. And now, let's hit the bricks. We're here with the brick hitter herself, Kathleen Brandt. And today we have Anna Wilkins from the great state of Kansas. And she is here with a question. And we're really happy to have you here, Anna. Thank you for dropping in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anna, in my note, you're a doula.
Yes.
So what does a doula do?
We assist expecting mothers with birthing plans, exercising comfort measures, breastfeeding techniques, etc., before and after birth of their baby. And usually I work with personally either doctors at the hospital or I contract with a midwife. This is a retirement career, but I love it.
It's still remarkable.
Okay, so Kathleen, you had met Anna. Do you want to tell that story about how you two got connected?
I'm going to let Anna tell the story.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Oh, okay. Well, I met Kathleen at the seminar. God, I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was called, at the library.
Identity Quest.
I'm sorry?
Identity Quest is
Identity Quest. Yes. I'm sorry. And I got a chance to listen to her breakout session. Afterwards, we just there was a few people just kind of milling around and outside the door, and we just kind of struck up a conversation. And I just kind of asked her a question just off the cuff, and she answered it. And I was just like, okay, well, she has this information on her flyer about doing the podcast. And so I decided to sign up. To see what would
welcome to Hittin' the Brick.
Thank you.
And also, John, Anna had a question that day in Topeka at the library, and I kind of gave her an answer, and a light bulb went on that she maybe needed to do some other research. So I'm going to start first, Anna, with that question, and then get to the other question you asked for Hittin' the Bricks. Okay. And the first question was about Malinda McKinney of Wabaunsee, Kansas. And my understanding is you lost her at about 1880 and couldn't find her in her older years after 1880. Is that correct?
Yes.
When we were talking in the hallway, you thought, well, maybe she passed for white because I had given an example in the DNA class. People might have passed for white, especially for African Americans. And that's one of the reasons we don't find them. But I want to back up on that a little bit. You mentioned that she was born, I believe, about 1875.
Somewhere around there, I think.
You had said somewhere around 1875 in Tennessee.
Okay.
First of all, what is your relationship with Malinda?
My grandmother's mother.
Okay.
No, my grandmother's mother's mother. So it'd be great, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Perfect. So she is a direct line from you. You thought she might have been born from Tennessee. And where did you all get that information?
Well, I just remember my grandmother saying that they had 4 sisters and 1 brother. And she always spoke of growing up in Tennessee. So I just took it for granted that everybody was born and raised in Tennessee.
That makes sense.
I didn't think any different.
Do you know her actual last name? Is it McKinney was her married name or her maiden name?
I don't know, because one point I thought she was a Jackson, and then because some of them's name are Jackson and some of them's name are McKinney, so I didn't know which one to grab or which one. I tried to look at both of them, but I found her under McKinney, so that's
okay.
How I found her.
So I want to give you a couple of hints on where you can go and do more research before you pick up that maybe she passed for white. It's very possible she never left. In Wabaunsee, Kansas at that time, it was very, not only rural, it was barely settled. And so we want to make sure that you're covering everything right there. So I'm going to give you 8 tips. Now, normally, if I'm teaching a presentation on this, I would say 8 tips and hints to find your female ancestor. So these are the 8 tips I would give you so that you can look her up, find her real maiden name and probably her parents and where she's from. For one, you have a Black woman in Wabaunsee, Kansas named Malinda. Malinda can be spelled 2 different ways. It can be spelled several different ways, but every time you see the vowel, put a question mark there. So that you're covering both the M-A-L and the M-E-L. And just in case it's spelled wrong, an M-I-L. So always just use that question mark on your vowel. And this is why you're doing, let's say, an ancestry search. And we also do that because there's lots of errors in the indexing. The other thing I want you to do is do a surname study for Wabaunsee, put in only the last name and put in the race as Black and see what other McKinneys you get. And that might help you narrow her family unit.
Okay.
A third thing I want you to do is to check the local cemeteries. Now, sometimes the cemeteries are segregated, so you want to also make sure there's not one just for the colored burials.
Right.
If there is an age discrepancy, like is she in a household with people who are in their 60s or 50s and they call her a daughter, it's possible they're actually a granddaughter. So I want you to really analyze your census records. And she may have married young, very common for Kansans. I have ancestors who married as young as 15 in Western Kansas. That also means they may have married several times. You might want to check to see if that has something to do with that whole Jackson, McKinney information that you have.
Okay.
You could check death certificates, and you're checking death certificates nationwide with anyone with her surname, saying the mother is. Do you have a mother with this, Malinda McKinney from Kansas? Okay. And you'll put a birth of Kansas in there. So we're playing with the databases. And don't forget that Kansas also has odd number census records that gives a lot of information. Not in every county, but in some of the counties, and Wabaunsee's one of them. So I want you to not be loyal to your assumptions. Don't have a predecision on where she is or what happened to her until you actually have a reason to have that thought.
Yes.
I don't know if that might help you.
Yes.
Well, did that help you at all, John?
I was going to say, this is really familiar to me because I typically get an 8-step solution from Kathleen about how to change the sheets on the bed or load the dishwasher. Normally involves a short seminar, a quick test afterwards that's normally online. But then I'm able to get a load of laundry done.
Might I add that after 25 years, he still gets a D- on making the bed.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
But we're going to just let him keep trying until he gets it right.
When did you start doing your research on your family, and what was kind of the impetus of research?
It was my sister. I have one sister, and she's 7 years older than myself. But it's just the idea of she has children, grandchildren. Mm-hmm. I have children, grandchildren. And I just came to the conclusion that it's important for those children to know where they come from. You can talk to them day and night, but just to have something physically where they can see and hold and, share, have a continuum generation to generation, hopefully, that they can just have, and we could just share amongst ourselves and pass it on.
And so that's what put you in it. It was your sister and kind of the idea that somebody's going to need to know these things.
Now, that's not why you called in, however.
Now so we get to the meat.
This is now we get to the meat. And Anna, you had also a question on ship records, but I wanted you to clarify exactly what is your question.
I do have a manifest of slaves from a family member on my mother's side of the family. And my question was, is there a way to find out where the slave ships came from versus when they, we have an idea of where they ported, but do we have an idea of where they would have come from?
So is this on the same family line as Malinda or no?
Yes.
So you submitted to me a ship record. I believe his name is Moses.
That's correct.
And he was on a manifest of slaves from 1857. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is one of the questions I had about Malinda, if it was the same family. You thought she was from Tennessee, but Moses was clearly, according to his manifest record, coming into New Orleans area for a man by the name of Peacher. So were you able to look up the Peacher person, William A. Peacher?
I found that there was a plantation that's still in existence. The family is still very much have roots there, but other than that, nothing else.
Well, let me explain how we work with the ship manifest records first.
Okay.
So one of the things I'm looking at is the picture you sent me on the manifest record that tells me that there was a William A. Peacher from Brandon, Mississippi, not Tennessee. He was the one who was claiming Moses as a slave.
Okay.
And that is in Rankin County, Mississippi. I want to say that, first of all, when we're looking at slave manifests, the two main keys is who was the captain of the ship, and you want to trace that, and you want to trace the person who was paying for the slave or paying for the transport of that slave, which is this fellow from Brandon, Mississippi. We also want to look at the dates. So I know that this particular ship left Galveston on March the 9th, and it went to New Orleans on the 11th. And the ship is the steamship Louisiana, the SS Louisiana. So in this part, I did a very quick search because I was trying to pull together how you got Tennessee. And so I'm going to give you a few things that will help you when we're tracing slave ships. Besides making sure we research the shipper and research the captain of the ship, we want to research the ship. The easiest way to do all three of those to start with is a newspaper search. And in a newspaper search, based on this particular slave manifest, we see that the ship captain was W.H. Talbot.
Right.
And I just put that in a place like newspaper.com's, newspaper archives, any kind of newspaper research, or maybe Chronicling America, which is free to everyone through the Library of Congress. I just put that name in that search bar, and it tells me that William H. Talbot was the captain of the SS steamship for these years. And that particular steamship was not a slave ship. It is a mail ship, but it took freight. So if you had a freight, which would be a slave, he can get on the mail ship and go that route. You can also learn the route this way. So you ask, how do you know where it originated and goes to? Well, the SS Louisiana just does a circle because it's just delivering mail. It goes from Indianola, Texas to Galveston, Texas to New Orleans, and then it goes back around again. And you could put your freight on and off this ship. So we really like the fact that this particular ship was easy to analyze and to trace, because it kind of told me also he really probably was from Rankin, Mississippi. One of the keys to finding this route for this particular ship was it lands in New Orleans. As you remember, I told you that it looks like our Peacher person is from Rankin County in Mississippi. Both are off of the Mississippi River. And if you come down further, you get to the Pearl River. The Pearl River is a swampy area. It is really known for slave runaways, because if the slave could get to that Pearl River swamp, they couldn't be traced. Also, it is noted for the Confederacy. I think it's St. Tammany Parish. If you have Confederate ancestors, you too want to know the path of that Pearl River to the Mississippi River. And it makes sense that your William A. Peacher actually lived on the other side of that Pearl River. A lot of the big city business from that part of Mississippi did their business in New Orleans. So for him to pick up or drop off a slave in New Orleans makes a lot of sense. Did that make sense to you? Go ahead.
It's just, this is wonderful news. Now I know which way to relook or whatever. But yeah, I just remember my grandmother always talked about Tennessee for some reason.
Probably because of later generations. People wanted to get out of Mississippi for obvious reasons. Tennessee was much friendlier. Okay. I mean, when you compare it to Mississippi. Okay. So it's very possible that was a stop, not uncommon with Kansas. I too have family members from North Carolina. Their first stop was Tennessee for several years before they went to Western Kansas, though, not the Wabaunsee area. Matter of fact, another weird fact.
Oh, no.
Outside of part of Topeka, used to be called Tennessee Town. And it was where all the Black people settled. Yeah. And so it's not uncommon from Tennessee to Kansas was a very nice stop, especially with Pap Singleton in our world.
Right.
And do you want to mention something about Pap Singleton?
Pap Singleton, no. People, we'll talk about Pap Singleton on another episode.
No, I'll call you right out on that right now.
But I can talk about him.
I'm sure you can. But quick, let me check the time. Again, let's jump back to what's come up so often is what about DNA in this case?
Anna, you will want to take a DNA because we're talking about the Peacher family. And as I mentioned, these planters all traded within each other, even those that were all related. So we don't know if you are a direct relation of the Peachers or not, but you may be direct relation to other people that were on other Peacher plantations or other plantations in the area. And that will help you place whether or not you were that Tennessee stop that maybe your ancestors took. It may or may not have the name Peacher involved, but we can look at your cousin matches and decide, well, what kind of migratory path did other people have? That might help you also.
Okay.
And I think I covered, John, everything except one of the other questions you asked about how to trace ship records, Anna. Well, first of all, I want you to remember that you can get a lot of pictures of ship records on the Library of Congress website. But one of our biggest keys to slave manifest records is the National Archives. The National Archives has a web page, it's archives.gov. And if you go there and you put in slave manifest as your keyword, you will see that there are about 30 rows of microfilm on just slave ships. So I would say start with the newspapers in the archivals. The DNA will help also for you to figure out which ship was going in whatever region you were talking about. And that helps a lot. If you're looking for where they originated, though, it often came through the captain records. So those captain records, a lot of times are held in archives, not always. But that's why we want to research the captains. It tells us where that ship transported. As well as, like I said, you're looking at the National Archives slave ship manifest.
Thank you so much. It's just what was puzzling me. Well, and then you kind of explained it as well, is, when you're tracing women, how the names can shift so much and so often.
Yes.
And that makes it very difficult to make you wonder if you're pulling the right person or not.
I have one thing to mention. You said women's names changed between 1865 to almost the 1900. It was not supposed to last that long. Slaves were able to choose their own names. So everyone might have a different last name. The most famous one we have is Martin Luther King. He was born a king, but his family chose that last name. It was not the name they had when they came out of slavery.
Right. His name was Michael.
Yes, exactly. So his first and last names might change with slave names. So that's
Yeah.
also why DNA might help us. Might I share a nice little tidbit, John?
No.
I'm going to
Anna?
anyway.
Okay,
So
we're going to put you on a tidbit quota. No,
a tidbit quota.
yeah,
I
you're
have
up to
one
3 tidbits.
I have one very important one that Anna needs to know about.
Oh, okay. We'll lead with this one.
Okay. The shipper, I mentioned W.H. Talbot, who was in the SS Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And I said that route went from Indianola, Texas to Galveston, Texas, and all the way around to New Orleans and kept going in that circle. Indianola, Texas is best known for the first stop off state in America for the camels that we imported. And the camels were used. I know
you're saying camels. Do you mean camels?
I mean humpback camels.
You mean wait a minute. Let's just make sure you don't mean the things that they rode in the cavalry. You mean the things with the humps that you see at the zoo, right?
I mean camels.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Mister. So Indianola, Texas had the 1856 Camel Corps. It landed in Indianola, then they crossed and went out further west. And that is what that particular port was most known for. And we brought in like 45, I think, 2 shiploads of camels for a western trek across America.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even think that there were camels ever here. Oh my gosh.
Okay, that tidbit stays.
Okay.
That's a good one. Wow.
Wow. Anna, do you have any other questions for me?
I do not. Actually, I'm just looking forward to just diving right back in when I have more time and seeing what comes up, and getting the DNA test done is really my next stop, really on the top of my list next.
We will post on our website when we post the episode, pretty much the things I've told you. So you'll have a recap for your research plan, because I know...
Are you going to put your 8 steps up?
Yes, I'll put the 8 steps up for Malinda, and I'll talk again about the ship records, also what you need to make sure you trace.
And the camels.
Because all good genealogists have a research plan. And so this will get you started on your research plan as I put John on a camel out west.
Okay. Anna, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you coming by. It was a lot of fun. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I was not as nervous now, but
good. We're a friendly bunch.
This is very cool. I really like this, and I'm really excited about, the tips that she offered, and I just really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks, Anna, for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Anna.
Bye. Nice meeting you.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for staying. We want to thank our guest, Anna Wilkins, for her questions and spending some time with us. Thanks to Chewy Chewbacca Brandt, our full-time pizza bone disposer and part-time gaffer, for his unwavering lack of interest in anything we're doing. The theme song for Hittin' the Bricks was written and performed by Tony Fistknuckle and the Aphids. See their next show in the parking lot of the Wabaunsee Piggly Wiggly on the second Tuesday after the 5th Friday in January. We'd love to hear what you think about the podcast, so stop by our Facebook page at Hittin' the Bricks and let us know.